Hello. Last night I had this really spectacular, just stellar dream, and because of it, I've just been in this fantastic mood all day. My dreams have been really impacting my waking life a lot recently. Um, and because I've been in such a better mood than usual today, I started reaching out to a number of people that I haven't spoken to in a long time. Um, because it just felt like today was today was the day. I woke up, it felt like I got the message, today's the day to kick some ass out there. Do the things that you've been putting off doing. So I reached out to some people, and since doing that in the back of my mind all day, I've been going over how do I explain what's happened to me to these people? I think I've talked about this before, that I don't really have I don't really have a concept of what what's the line of when do I totally lose them? One's they might be oh, that's just Tom, that's typical Tom. He does that, he says that stuff. Or I can go a little too far, share things that maybe I shouldn't, and then hear, oh, has he actually lost his mind? Should we be worried? That kind of thing. And I don't know where that line is. I'm assuming these people that I'm talking about will watch this, so if you are one of those people, disregard all this. This is projection. I don't actually think that you would judge me. But in the back of my mind, I've been just churning. How do I explain this? And it had me reflecting on what happened. And I started to these connections started being made, not necessarily noticing new things, but visualizing and being able to put into words the mechanics about what's happened. And I came to the realization that, to put it very shortly, what happened to me in my reawakening moment, if I were to sum up what specifically, mechanically happened, was that I saw myself reflected, purely. And in that moment, it was as clear as day that, oh, I'm this person, I'm everyone. I think because I had already learned that lesson multiple times in the past, it just was that click back again of oh, we're back in this state again. You remember again. Because I say reawakening instead of awakening because this was all things I more or less believe. If you were to ask me for the last few years, what do you think is going on with the universe? I would have said that I think that I'm everything, that we're everything. But I am noticing now that there was a rejection of that fact, an intense rejection, and a rejection to the extent that I would block it out of my memory. Fully, the second I said no, it was just wall up, that invisible barrier. True. I think that's what I'm noticing with a lot of people in general when I try to talk about this and they're I don't get what you're saying. I think they have that invisible barrier up too, where it's just they do not want to know, or they don't want to accept, so they can't even begin to have it. It truly is, because I'm noticing it's I'll try to explain something to people, and it feels I have I'm taking their hand and I'm walking them to a place, and then at some point while I have their hand, they're where did you go? Where did you go? And it's I passed a threshold that they aren't willing to pass, and what that means is I turn invisible to them. What I'm saying can't be heard or seen. And I will try to explain, hey, come forward, and you can see where I am again. And then they're I don't see where you are. Where are you? I don't see where you are. And because they're not willing to cross that threshold, there's no way to really get across what happened. What's happened. Because I can assume, or I will project, because this is what happened with me, is that when I'm presented with the fact that God, the universe, this, whatever this is, our experience, individual and on a total level, is one thing that is terrifying because it trivializes everything else that we spend our whole lives doing. I've talked about this before, and this isn't really a new idea. But when you realize that, everything becomes a lot smaller scale. Like, it is infinity, but in the same sense, like, you kind of know the bounds of infinity a bit more. If that makes sense. So after learning that, as when I was probably 18 was the first time I noticed this, I distinctly remember because I had an experience after high school with some friends, and during it, it was just like clear as day that I was like, oh, I'm everything. And the friends I were with were like, yeah, you figured it out. We already knew this, but like, hey, good that you figured it out on your own. And I remember riding my bike home the next morning and being so bummed, just being truly like sad because I had all of these like delusions of ego, like truly all I wanted to do my entire life was placate this ego, and all of my actions were to like build up this like persona, this ego that could do specific things that only fed the ego. And now I was being told right before I was going to go into college, into like the beginning of real adulthood, that all of the stuff I was working on didn't mean anything. Like, not that it didn't mean anything, but you were in the wrong space. Your energy was spent on something that isn't really as important as you think it is. And I was like, it's something I'll never forget, because I was both like, I truly was more at peace than I had been in a very long time, maybe ever up to that point. But at the same time, it was like I was so deflated. It was one of the strangest, like, I remember it vividly. And from that moment, though, I think I just chose, let's just stuff this down. Let's not remember this. So the more I just kind of ignored it, the more it went away, to the point that I completely forgot, or like I just like with a lot of extra like spectacular experiences that we have. After a point, we're like, did that really happen? Or was that just in my head? You start to like, it becomes easier and easier to say that like what you experienced, that spectacular thing, couldn't have happened, because you surround yourself with so much of the like fakeness again, like the four walls everywhere, that kind of thing. It's easy to buy back into the illusion. I also believe that because it was so easy to buy back into the illusion, that it became like it was proof that the illusion was the real reality, because that was the one that was easier to fall into, which now I'm learning isn't the case, but faith is a choice. But I didn't recognize that at the time. But that wasn't the last time I felt this. That wasn't the last time I had that realization. And it would come in flickers and flickers. There was, and every time, I would choose to forget every time. Like, I would have the realization. Sometimes I would try to induce it. I was like, oh, I know that was like such a wild thing when I did this, this, and this. I'm going to induce it because that was such a wild thing. And then I would do that. I would get to that place. And it would truly be like, I was like, oh, I'm back here again. Why did you do this? You know you don't like this place. It truly was like, I was speaking, you could hear God sometimes. And God was saying, why are you coming back here when you clearly don't want to accept what's going on? Like, vividly, I remember hearing that and seeing that and experiencing that. Why do you keep doing this when you clearly don't want to accept what's happening? It was easy to just continuously push it down, push it down, push it down. And then my life truly just kind of went on a decline, because obviously I was fighting for a life that didn't matter, that didn't have any true substance. So how is that not going to blow up in your face? Slowly, mental stability sinks and sinks and sinks. I get desperate, like truly, like I can't deal with this. Like I really need help. Please help, anything help. And I wasn't talking, like I wasn't really praying. Like I don't think I really ever fully believed in a sentient universe, which is what I would have called God. But I was just like truly, like if you were stuck on an island alone, you would scream for help. That's kind of what I was doing. But I still was doing it. And I had suffered enough. I had learned the lesson that choosing to forget this lesson and continuing to focus on the fake world isn't going to get you anywhere. That's not what you were born for. That's not who you were created to serve. You can only serve money or God. And every time I wanted to serve money so badly, because I had spent so much time thinking I was right, I had to be right, because otherwise that meant everything, the entire ego would shatter. And ultimately it did. It self-destructed because it was a premise built on lies. So then, a few months ago, when the experience happens again, for the first time in many years, the experience happens. I'm seen. I see someone, and I notice that that's me. That is not my face on them, but that is me that I'm looking at. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm everything. You're back here again. Hey, do you want to accept the answer this time? Do you want to accept that this is what's actually happening? Everything else hasn't been working. Same offer every time. Infinite love, infinite forgiveness. All you gotta do is say yes. And I finally did. And once you say yes, and you actually commit, like it's no longer a question of, like, am I going to give up on God? No, because I know that the alternative is death. The death I was already living in. And now I'm in a day like today, pure happiness. Multiple people were like, I love your smile today. Apropos of nothing. That doesn't happen to me. I get this now. I just had to say yes. I had to get to the point where I could say yes. Which solidifies what I want to do. It solidifies, like, or maybe posits a theory that might be obvious and true. And if it is, that's great. But if what activated me was being seen by someone who knew who I was, because that's ultimately what it was. Every once in a while, you'll see the face of someone, and what they're really doing, I think, is they're just seeing me as themselves. Truly. Not like kindergartners that hear the golden rule, like treat others like you're supposed to be treated. No, you're seen by someone who sees you as themselves. And when there is that recognition, it kind of unlocks that. Sometimes involuntarily. You might not want the experience, but when you get seen for who you are, and you see yourself looking at yourself, what do you to think but, oh, I'm looking at myself. Oh, am I everything? I want to be able to do that for people. And I guess that's kind of what I was already working at. I was to get to a place where in every moment of every day, when I look at anyone, I see myself. Love thy enemy, love thy neighbor, love. become love. Become a vessel, an instrument of love. But now I see the mechanics behind it. I see why it's important. It's a good mission statement as to why I want to do what I do. Saved my life, I want to be able to help save others' lives. If that's what I'm meant to do. Thank you for listening. I hope you're having a wonderful day, truly. Like, truly. Please be safe. I love you. Peace.